Let's continue here. The 7-year-old legal battle between Marikana mine workers, President Cyril Ramaphosa and Sibanye Stillwater was back in court today. The matter was postponed following complaints by the miners' legal representative, Andries Nkome, on the disclosure that Judge Lamont held shares in Sibanye. The mine workers are suing the government for almost 1 billion rand. Well, let's talk to that attorney who's representing the injured and arrested workers. Mr. Nkome, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. Look, it's really incredible to see how long somebody like yourself has stood by those families of Marikana from the time that this case was still very much in its preliminary phases, and it's been more than 7 years now, and you're still fighting on in the courts.
Good evening, Kathy, and thanks for having me. This year marks 10 years after the Marikana massacre took place. It took place on the 16th of August, on a Thursday in 2012. Now, it's very sad that we've got to sit today and still be in court, especially with people of the caliber such as the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, for us to seek to have him unconditionally apologize for having caused the massacre that took place in Marikana back then.
Let's talk about then what you want the court to do in this instance.
There is 3 sets of remedies that we're essentially looking for from the president, together with lawmen. The first is that he must unconditionally apologize for having caused the atrocities that took place in Marikana. And the second is that he must participate in a reconciliatory program together with the victims of Marikana. The third one is that he must pay compensation towards each and every one of the people that were affected by the massacre. Essentially, it's people that we represent, which are the injured and arrested, and they are 328 people.
You say he must apologize for having caused the massacre. Of course, that has not been the findings of even the commission that was carried into that Marikana inquiry.
Yes, you remember that when the then president, Jacob Zuma, formed the commission, we went and had an argument that says we are aware of 3 things essentially that caused the massacre. But the main one was a toxic collusion between state and capital. State and capital in the sense that obviously the government had been using the army as well as the police there, so the state was obviously involved. But capital, as in the sense that lawmen, together with the president and an NEC member of the ruling party, was instrumental in making sure that he characterizes the labor dispute as a criminal act. And he then went on to say, being a criminal act, the police must go on and act with concomitant action, which we say he meant that the police must go and treat our clients, his laborers, as criminals, and they ought to be shot and killed.
I hear what you're saying, Andries. I suppose what I'm saying that this issue has been thoroughly ventilated through various processes, and none of them have come out to unequivocally say that as a result of that email, as a result of those comments, then the Marikana massacre can be pinned on the president, the then director at Lonmin.
Look, I think one goes back to the records of the Farm Commission. The state, the SAPS, called a witness from the US, Mr. Dirova. And Mr. Dirova stated that there was no way in which a massacre of the magnitude such as Marikana could have taken place without the influence of politicians. Now we know that Judge Lamont made recommendations, but he went only as far as indicating the then National Police Commissioner, Pierre. What we are saying is that we've got instructions to go and review the findings of the Farm Commission, and also we know that the government has accepted liability for what transpired in Marikana. So all of these factors combined essentially place blame at the door of the president to say he ought to apologize.
Okay, let's talk then about the issue of the money, the compensation that the families are looking for. The state, of course, in a separate process, it has already begun the process of paying. This is some form of compensation to the affected families. How different is this to that process?
Look, we are saying when one party compensates a bereaved family member, that action was as a result of 3 people. The one that pays, the other will be absolved. So therefore it means if Andries is owed R1 million by 3 people, and one of them pays that 1 million rand, it therefore means the debt, the compensation that was due to me would not be due anymore. But over and above this, we are saying we are not done yet with finding compensation from government. Again, even if government were to give an apology, that apology would not be the president's apology. So therefore, an apology is personal, and we expect it both from the president as well as from London and from government.
So is that the same with the issue of compensation? So what I'm trying to understand is the compensation that is being sought now, is it in addition to what government has already committed to paying out to the families of Marikana?
Maybe if I may explain that the injured and arrested people that we represent, none of them has to this day been compensated a cent. So the president is not going to be paying damages that have already been paid by government. If government have gone on to pay for injuries, President Ramaphosa would not be liable for that.
Let's talk about then the removal, the removal of Judge Lamont from this case, and you know, why you felt it was important that he not be the person presiding over it.
The reason why Judge Lamont had to recuse himself from the matter was simply because he held about 4,000 million rand worth of shares from London. And the argument is simply that he is essentially the party that we are suing, we are claiming against, compensation against. For example, you would understand that if London made more money, he would derive a lot more benefit. He would derive a bit higher dividends than he would if that claim had not been paid. So therefore, he could not be impartial in the matter with the Marikana miners, and therefore he had to recuse himself.
All right, Andries Nkome, let's leave it there for tonight. And here's representing the workers, some of the injured and arrested workers of Marikana.